We have a family farm operation in Illinois, located in northwest Illinois, about 45 miles northwest of Springfield. My wife Lori and I are fortunate enough to have our two sons, Brandon and Jacob, involved in a very diversified farming operation. We cover a lot of different crops. So like I said, half our acreage is irrigated with center pivot irrigation, and we raise some standard corn, soybeans, wheat, which you say is pretty standard for Illinois, but we do branch out in some specialty areas. Popcorn, we raise some canning green beans with canneries and pumpkins, so some specialty crops like that. And we're also diversified in livestock, so we also have a small cow-calf operation. There's a lot of information and data that says this works. Why isn't everybody doing it? And I think that's where the hard question it is to answer here, because agriculture and just the farm neighbor to me to the left or right down the road is so different and diversified. And you know what? None of it's wrong. It works for them. And that's the same way with our operation. It's the same way, and we've got a balance with it. You know, I told the group here a little bit today, fortunate enough with different landlords. We're trying some of these practices. We've done cover crops. We're doing a little bit with bios now. We got it on some ground here. We're trying it in select fields to get started to figure out cover crops we have done for a long time. My point is, we also have some landlords that we rent their ground. We're fortunate enough to do that. And some of them have been some pretty long-term relationships. Some of that's a little harder sell on it. You'll say, well, why would that be? Well, it's something that's anymore out here. We do a lot of cash rents, which basically mean you pay a one-time fee to farm that ground for a year. And with that, the economics of this sometimes, because some of these practices do take more input costs. They do on that in nature. And some of them take some time to evolve and work. And I think us as farmers, we're always trying to do a better job, and we can probably do better, but we're going to need everybody in the ag industry to understand and educate all landowners out here, regardless of where it's at, important and how this is good for agriculture in the long run. I think understanding, a lot of us out here are always put in this category, a lot of producers leaving things in better shape, like the farm over my lifetime. We have a family farm ownership right there. It's been multi-generations, the same family on that. And the old adage, leaving it in better shape than when you were on it right there. And I think that goes on in a lot of situations out here. And I'd say it's going on very successfully when we can sit here and talk about how many generations have been on that farm out there. But I think another thing, understanding here, no matter how good regen ag is, what it is for the soil, there's an economic side of this that has to make it work. And simple, the last 2 years, agriculture has been at prices, it's been at some levels here. We've had some pretty nice profitability. We didn't, some areas of the state or country had droughts to deal with. I was fortunate enough not to have that. My point is, looking at it now, prices are down. These inputs, we're starting to see the squeeze here right now. That's all got to be figured in, just like a household budget for anybody else, how to make that work. Because you know what? If we're not profitable, we cannot be unprofitable too long, or we'll be out of business just like anybody else. It gets in, the terms like risk management, things of that nature. I think anybody out here in production ag now knows how to utilize that to what I call minimize risk with insurance products. One very popular around it, but there's other ways to do it too. And I think that's just part of the, I always use the phrase, and I think for non-ag to understand, boy, it's a great lifestyle out here. And boy, I'll agree with them, it is. I've raised a family there, I wouldn't change it any different. But it'll only be a lifestyle and continue to be a lifestyle if we treat it as a business. And I think sometimes everybody's got to understand that. When you mention trust, I think right now the relationships I have with different ones I buy inputs from and everything else, I really can't think of anyone there at that local level who I'm dealing with I've got trust with, okay? And if I don't have trust, I'm probably not going to be dealing with them very long, okay? And that's earned. And I think from the selling side of that, they know that is hard to do. And that just takes, I think if anything, and I think a farmers are very strong on this, once that trust is lost, it is lost and it never comes back, okay? I've never think through the years that I've lost trust in the supplier or something they did. They're probably not going to use them again. I'm looking for something else out there. But it's very strong and very strong. And I think when we lose the sight of trust in our operations, and I know my farming operation, we're going to have a lot of problems. Regen ag for us, and I think that's a very good question. It starts with one part right there, and it's back to family. When I go out there, and I did this fall, myself, my sons, and we have some farm labor too, establish the cover crops, do the regen ag and everything. I'm talking about them, but it comes back to this. The patriarch of our Bell Turner family farm, my father-in-law, Morris Bell. If he was alive today, he'd sit here and smile and he said, Steve, I did those same practices 70 years ago. That makes me feel good inside. And I think sometimes not losing perspective about, we just got to rethink it and remold it on how we're doing there. Because you know what? He practiced that. He left that ground in better position for Lori and I to come on and carry on the farming tradition right there. And that's emotion right there. That's emotion that ties to it. And I'm passionate about farming. I love it. I think you can tell that, and that emotion has to be there. If that emotion goes out of me, I just don't think I'd be a very good farmer. It'd be tough. I think it's more personal now than it probably was 20, 30 years ago. But as I work with my sons in the farming operation, as they're innovative now, they've got a passion and personal for it too. You know, you either get the bug or you don't, and you better have it, because I think trying to do it without that just is going to be tough. And I think if anything else, just trying to find the economic stability to have them in the operation to make it work. That's one of the biggest challenges out here. Whether you do it to get more efficient on smaller acres and have the same income, or do it with expansion. There are many ways out here, but look what I had to come back to. It's income. That is our paycheck. That is our paycheck right there. It has to be there. Fortunate enough, it's been ours for us to raise our family and continue forward. You know, I firmly believe farmers understand that. There's nobody out here. If you're raking the soil and you're not taking care of it, there will be a day of reckoning. That day of reckoning will be when it doesn't produce anymore. The reality here out here in agriculture, if you're doing it, something is going to change. Unless you own the ground, somebody else will probably be farming because you're not taking care of it. And I've seen that play out. It does play out here, okay? And we've got to do that. And we're fortunate enough. We have a lot of ways, supplies, technology to keep that soil in condition. When I revert back to my father-in-law and some of the practices he used to do. I started out as a little boy because I grew up on a farm, my dad's farm, riding a tractor with a moldboard plow, turning that dirt over. And now we leave residue and things. My dad was like, you dissed it. If you left a corn stalk laying on the ground, you weren't farming right. You might say, that was terrible. Well, that was our technology back then. That was the machinery we had back then. Look where we are today. That's where we are today. And but there again, fond memories, and one of those memories yet, and I'll still see that at shows sometimes I go to, that there is nothing better when you have farming in your blood to smell the turn of dirt of a moldboard plow. I know that's not good erosion control and things, but when that turns and that smell, anybody that's been around it, they get a smile on their face.